Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Morgan Burge and I'm your host. I am the author of 11 books. I am a CEO of 12 years. I am the founder of a startup that looked at taking on the likes of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, set on data privacy. I am an elite performance coach of near 18 years, having worked with athletes throughout Europe, North America to Australia. And most profoundly, I am the world's leading scientist on coach and athlete performance that uses tennis as a blueprint that has uncovered and continues to uncover how to develop a top 10 ranking. My work includes mitigating injuries through to pathways to develop top 10 players, and I am behind theories such as the optimal performance theory, the V by Dr. B, the rule of transference, having coined terms such as the barrier breaker to the golden rule. In each episode, we're going to look at one of my books, specifically delving in deeper into key sections to deliver additional insights on really what it takes to develop a top 10 player. And I'll say that again specifically. My work has been the only actually in the world when we're looking from a scientific standpoint on how specifically to develop a top 10 player. And look, we didn't even think it was possible. I didn't think it was possible, but now we know it's possible. And that's probably the most exciting part, is knowing that science can actually guide us, but specifically when we're really looking at the fundamentals and we're wrapping everything together through to 18 going on 20 years, we actually know how. And that's what we're going to dig in deeper and really get to the nitty-gritty of it all. Today's episode is featured on the secrets to optimal performance success, a comprehensive discussion on developing elite coaches and players. It is my first book that was released and also where all of our current episodes have been featured around. Today we're going to be starting on page 56 if you would like to follow along. And as has become custom, I'm going to read snippets of the chapter and then we're going to dig a little bit deeper into it. Today's topic is performance expectations and where do you stand? A lot of this really is cross-sectional with pressure. And regardless if you are a player, athlete, coach, parent, or just anyone else, we specifically look at how we humanize elite performance, but specifically how it's cross-relational to everyday life. Because at the end of the day, players, athletes, they're humans. Coaches, parents, humans. And the one thing we've got in common, we're humanizing it all, but we're also individuals and we all have our individual responses. And I can say that again, is that no human being, no individual, no athlete or player is the same, which means we need to look at how we can accommodate the individual if we're really looking at digging deeper on how to get towards a top 10 ranking. Okay, here we go. As a coach, it is essential to lay out your expectations for your athletes. It is equally important for your athlete to set out their expectations of you. This is a big one, and it really comes down to, if we're really going to just, take it all back, is what are your goals? Now, whether you are, again, an individual or an athlete, everyone has their key objectives of what they're heading towards. And if we're looking at how we can really optimize our performance and the underlying parameters, it starts with that commonality between that key objective, which just simply is, what are your goals? Where are you heading? What are your current ones? What are your huge ones? And let's break it down. The coach-athlete relationship works both ways, and to be the most effective, acknowledging this and respecting one another is the key. Having the capacity to optimize athlete performance. Now, oftentimes it's mistaken that respect is one way, whereas the athlete or player respects the coach. And I guess most typically, if we're looking at like that child-adult relationship, there is that undertone of the respect almost being a given. But what we're looking at here is that that's not the case. Although we would like it to be, on one hand, it's not the most optimized relationship, because hopefully we all know, if you're listening, that it's mutual. That is a fundamental element here, is that the coach needs to be able to respect the player or athlete they're working with, and in turn also that coach respecting, yes, I guess the triangle there, the parent guardian that's a part of that relationship, along with that athlete or player respecting the coach in return, and really building the foundations of that robust coach-athlete relationship. There are some coaches out there who do not view the coach-athlete relationship as an even give and take. For some, it is all take. Others, all give. And the same applies to players or athletes alike. This is where the majority of problems stem. Although, to avoid these unnecessary and preventable problems, by actively working on the coach-athlete relationship, a player's performance will be the beneficiary. Now, specifically, it's no matter if we're looking at a coach-athlete relationship or any other relationship for that matter, we all have heard of and are familiar with balance. Now, balance is universal, cross-sectional, cross-transferable to all elements of life. And that's probably the most intriguing / exciting part, is that it's not essentially that you're learning something new that you're only going to be using here or there. It's universal that you get to use in your everyday life. So most specifically, it's really learning the fundamentals of relationship building, how to generate that respect and that rapport, and all of those underlying characteristics that point towards a healthy and mutually respectful relationship. When establishing a new relationship with a player or athlete, it is essential for the longevity of the coach-athlete relationship for performance expectations to be discussed, and not just the coaches or just the players. Remember, it works both ways. This is a big one, because a player might come to their coach and say, I want to be top 10 in the world. And a coach has a myriad of responses there. It's, let's get to work. Okay, let's set out a pathway so it's realistic, like we're getting serious so we can get there. It also could be like, I think I would just like to do this. And it could go off to an assortment of tangents along that narrative. So I guess essentially I'm saying is that it could be really for it, or, maybe it could be a little bit against that. And I think it's incredibly important for the parents and players out there to also be mindful that coaching is a business, which means you are a customer or you're a client. Though, as much as maybe that's not how you want to view it, try to view it as empowering, because the player and the parent need to be empowered to choose the right coach for your performance objectives. I'll say that again. You are able to feel and entitled to feel empowered to choose that right coach dynamic, all right? Which means if you have a goal, it is up to you as the player or the athlete to choose fit for purpose. So what coach is fit to deliver on that purpose? If you want to be a top 10 player, is this coach the right one for you? Now, the argument is that there are coaches out there that have developed a top 10 player before, so they can do it again and again and again. But science tells us otherwise, and the historical data tells us otherwise. There are some, and we can count them on one hand, of coaches out there that have been able to replicate that level with a player. And that is incredibly important to be familiar with, because I cannot tell you how many players on the WTA and ATP tours call upon these coaches because they've been there before or they've done this before. We know from a research and scientific standpoint that on one hand, they can get the athlete this far, but it is not just up to that coach to get the player to that level. It works both ways. And now what I mean there is that it works both ways is that that player is also responsible for a certain knowledge base. So is that coach, which means you are responsible for a certain level in your knowledge base, and so is that coach. Now, if that relationship dynamic is not identical, then no, it is not clear or set in stone. And that is where a lot of players feel let down, or players go, I'm not getting the results after 6 months, so no, I'm going. And it's so much more than that. It's about building the fundamentals between the coach and the athlete, and also recognizing the patterns and the pathways. And just because they've done it before does not necessarily mean they can do it again. It might give you the confidence, but I will tell you something, which is, I absolutely love this, because the data tells us that even though there are a small number of coaches out there that have been able to achieve that with a certain player, you could be a coach that no one has heard of. But if you have the knowledge and you have the player and you put the work to build the fundamentals, you are just as equipped to achieve that end result. And that is, I guess, incredibly exciting, because that's what a significant part of my work has all been around, is that if you are empowered with that data and that knowledge base, and you have an athlete who is likewise, or a coach that is likewise, and you are continuously learning together, building that relationship together, optimizing your performance together, the likelihood of your success is incredibly high, compared even essentially to a player ranked inside the top 20 that decides to not upkeep and progress their knowledge base and incorporate and include the latest data and science in their performance to optimize their performance. The likelihood of them breaking into the top 10 is incredibly small. Same for a top 100 player, top 50 player. It is universal, and that is probably the most important and significant part of the data, but also the work. And I think it has been fundamental to Beyond Top 10 Tennis, because it's sharing the narrative behind not only how to get to a top 10 ranking, but dispelling the myths behind that. You could be ranked 800 in the world, 500 in the world, it doesn't matter. Specifically, AIM8 International has the pathways set out, which for the parents out there, I think is incredibly insightful to have that knowledge and to understand the roads ahead, but also for the players and athletes out there to look forward to see what is required of you to get to a certain level. Okay. So, what does this mean? It means that the coach needs to ask the player or athlete what their expectations are of them. What is the player or athlete's objective going forward, and how would they like you, the coach, to help them? This is a big one, and it's incredibly important because, again, it's both sides, which means for that player or athlete, you really need to come prepared, be organized, write it down, prepared to have that discussion with your future and or potential coach. Be able to share with them your wants, not as simply, I would like to play this sport at your club, thank you. It's be prepared and be honest, but also brutally upfront and honest, as in, can you get me there? And it's up to you and also your parent or guardian to have that discussion together. Is this the right fit? And if it's not, next one. If it's the only option, how can you make it work for you? Try to avoid, that mishap or misconception around, this is the only way. That is not the case. It's about broadening your horizons, and once you become more equipped with, that key knowledge that we're discussing, you're empowered to do more, to go further, to progress further. And before you know it, you're either embarking on the top 50, you're embarking on that top 800, irrespective of what your ranking stance is. It's about preparing yourself to be equipped to go further. It then becomes appropriate for the coach to respond in this dynamic. The coach needs to first consider if they can help the player or athlete achieve this or these objectives. And then second, lay out their performance expectations. This way, once all is done and dusted, the player or athlete knows where they stand and the coach knows where they stand too. Both parties benefit, and that's how it should be. Now, this is incredibly important because as a player with your parent and or guardian, have that discussion and come prepared and talk with that coach. And the coaches out there, be honest, be brutally honest with them. Okay, not to the point of no. It's about being open-minded. If you are a coach and you have the audacity to tell a player that they cannot achieve their set objective, one, you shouldn't be coaching. But two, to the players and parents out there, I am so sorry on their behalf. Because it comes down to having that open mindset and having that knowledge to be able to get there. If, however, you are that coach that does not know, be brutally honest in saying, I'm not sure. I would love to get you there if that's the case, but I just don't know how at this point in time. But I am prepared to put in the work with you. If you are prepared to put in the work with me, we can make an incredible team. And having that honest discussion between the three of you, so that triangle, is not only empowering, it is the baseline, the absolute baseline of a successful coach-athlete relationship, but also coach-parent relationship in that dynamic. So if we can set a precedent about being honest with each other to begin with, setting the stage about why I'm here, why I'm showing up to practice each and every day, what am I working on, where is my coach guiding me? Good. You are in a very good position if we're looking at the long game and the road ahead. Performance expectations mightn't be as straightforward as this seems. More often than not, they aren't. More frequently, coaches do not let their players lay out their expectations. And even more frequently, players are hesitant in coming forth with their coaches because they feel as though they are not on the right foot to begin with. And I'll say that again in a different way, is that they are hesitant in coming forth with their coaches because they feel as though they are on the back foot from the get-go. So irrespective how you'd like to phrase that, it's saying that front foot, back foot, irrespective, is that they don't feel comfortable to begin with. They don't feel as though it's a safe space where they can necessarily include those really frightening, hairy, scary goals. But they keep them up at night because they can't think about anything more exciting, which is incredible. That is, I think, the heart and soul of being a child, teenager, adolescent, young adult, etc. And potentially there are adults out there that maybe they've stopped dreaming or forgot. But if they can look at their child, they're reminded of what that's like. And it's incredibly important for the parents and guardians out there to go, we want to not only protect that light, but let it shine bright. Find ways we can get it to even shine brighter. And who knows, and maybe, we'll all feed off that as well, which is another topic, but an incredibly powerful topic nonetheless. Though it's essentially also looking at the coaches out there. Do you want your players, athletes' light to shine brighter? Or do you want to be responsible for dimming that? Be honest. The precedent is honesty and working together and being prepared to put in the hard work with each other. This is not right and is the beginning of an unhealthy coach-athlete relationship. Again, about being upfront and on the back foot to begin with. However, commonly, coaches are not shy in coming forth with their expectations, what they expect from their players or athletes. This is generally accepted, yet frames the coach-athlete relationship in a single light, a one-way street where the player or athlete isn't encouraged to communicate what their performance expectations are for the coach. Although parents do have the capacity to fill this void, this shouldn't be encouraged. Now, this is, I'm near laughing because it's so common / ironic, because you have this adult telling you what they expect from you. And as that player or athlete, you are allowed to reciprocate. So for the parents, guardians out there, your child is allowed to reciprocate. What do you expect from your coach? If I was in your shoes, and hey, I have been, I expect my coach to rock up on time. Actually, I expect my coach to be early and organized, and I want my lesson planned. I expect for my coach to be that organized, he's going to let me know what I'm working on. But also as a player, I'm going to tell my coach what I want to work on this session in advance. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to plan what I want to work on with my coach. So there is a chart. There is the periodization schedule that accommodates my health, my well-being, my performance, so I can peak at the right time. Now, I know that's potentially a lot to take in, but sit with those thoughts for a little bit and just really think about what you want and begin to, practice on asking for it. And being able to have that space in that coach-athlete dynamic is incredibly rewarding. And if your coach does not want to hear you, well, your answer's there. It's about looking towards the next person. For the parents, guardians out there, it's your responsibility to encourage this level of questioning, organization, but also empowering your child or athlete as a player to think forward. What do they want? What are they working on? How are they going to get there? For the coaches out there, it's the same. What can you do to work with those players to progress them further? If you can't, have the conversation and be honest. Why shouldn't parents try, though, and fill this void? It's really simple. It is the player's athlete's responsibility to be confident enough to stand up to their coach. This is very important because whilst you can practice this with your parent or guardian at home, at the end of the day, it is the player and the coach that is on the court, on the field, in the pool, irrespective of where you are. It's the two of you working together. And yes, parent or guardians could be on the sideline, they'll come pick you up later, maybe they could really closely be watching, but the conversations, the coaching is between the player and the coach. So the player needs to be able to get comfortable and confident in speaking with their coach their truth. They should feel comfortable and safe in talking with their coach. If a parent, however, notices that this is not the case, I suggest you find a new coach. This in itself is a big warning sign for an unsuccessful coach-athlete relationship. It's a big one. And too often I see this happening and also nothing being done about it. Whether the coach, they know, or the player, they know, and nothing's done. And then they scratch their heads wondering why their performance has not peaked. Or going back to the title of the book, why their performance has not been optimized. If we're looking at optimizing our performance, moving the marker to the next level, progressing further, that communication between the two is fundamental. To have that space to be able to talk openly is critical. And if that is not happening, it is really time to look at the next chapter. If a parent was to discuss their own expectations with the coach, this puts the player or athlete on the outside and encourages the coach to discuss any concerns or issues solely with the parent rather than working on and fostering a healthy and successful relationship with the player or athlete. Now, it's a significant topic and it's so big that we'll end on it, but it's about the relationship and the learning is between that coach and that athlete or player. If or as soon as that parent gets involved here, then the coach can be compelled to begin to discuss future options to progressions with the parent or guardian, and then the athlete or player is left on the outside, which is not what we want to be doing. Children play a sport for not only the inclusiveness, but also it's something that's theirs. It is something they enjoy and thrive in, and it's theirs. And if the parent or guardian steps across the line, you're taking that away from them. So it's a very fine line. It's obviously integral for the parent to talk with their child about how they're going and their progress, etc. But if the coach and parent are having the discussion to include your child in that discussion, all right, as is applicable, obviously there are areas, maybe not, though use your judgment. Though it's very important that that level of inclusiveness is consistent, and the athlete is always a part of the decision, and at the end of the day, the decision is the athlete's. Now, if you notice as a parent this happening more frequently, it's your responsibility to bring your child back into the equation, and also once you're home, have the discussion with your child about how they're feeling about this and this, whichever's been discussed, and then also for then that child to have that discussion with their coach and monitor the dynamics of that coach-athlete relationship. A lot of the times the parent thinks that they should not be a part of it. But if the parent is not a part of it, and if they're not, reviewing it or looking in from a distance as well, you're not going to see the warning signs. And depending on what age bracket your child falls into, they might actually not know the warning signs yet, which is critical. Okay, so there is an absolutely critical role for the parent and or guardian to play. If your child plays sport, that is absolutely fundamental. So please be a part of it. But when we're looking at that coach-athlete dynamic, it is important for the player or athlete to be able to have that communication exchange with their coach, but also important, because yes, it's 3 ways, for the parent to be able to talk with the coach about progress, performance as well. But if we're looking at planning, pathways, and everything else incorporated under that banner, bring the athlete. Let them be a part of this discussion because it's their decision to be made. Okay, I know there are a lot of parents out there, and I've seen them, and I know you, that want to make the decisions for their child with the best interests at heart, but let the child, let the player make the decision for themselves. That is incredibly powerful. And so I'll say that just one more time, is that let your child, let the player, the athlete, make the decisions, please, for themselves, because at the end of the day, they're playing their sport because it's their goal. No one else's, it's their goal. It's something they're driving towards, and with your support as that parent or guardian and coach even, with that support, you're making it possible. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope it was as insightful for you as I enjoyed, because look, when we're looking at performance expectations and where do you stand, there's a lot to unpack. If you'd like to grab a copy of the book, The Secrets to Optimal Performance Success, please head on over to AM8 International. That's am8international.com. Any comments or questions, please do the same, or head on over to Topic Thread. That is topicthread.com, and that is the only social network that I am on. If you would like something different and would like a preview of my fictional release or to grab a copy, then head on over to Pink Octopus Books. I will put all of these links in the episode notes and also in the bio. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, follow, like, share. Any or all of the above is incredibly appreciated, would be phenomenal. And also the feedback is sensational as well. I really appreciate it. Keep it coming, because at the end of the day, Beyond Top 10 Tennis is for you. And we're here to address queries, concerns, all of the above wrapped under this banner. So please continue. And you know what? By doing it, you're helping others with key common objectives, and I think also that's what it's all about, is being able to share, I guess, those optimal performance parameters. On that note, I am so incredibly grateful. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Burge. This is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.